Hey everybody, it's Xygor here. Season 1 is upon us in Diablo 4, and that means I'm bringing you another Whirlwind Barbarian guide, because the Whirlwind Barbarian is one of my favorite specs to play. It's a very viable farming spec, and the season mechanic gives it a new ability to push beyond what it did before, and I'll get into that eventually. But this is going to be an all-encompassing guide that gets into the skills, the gear, the expertise, the aspects, the skill tree, your Paragon board, and even the Malignant Hearts that you should use in Season 1 for Diablo 4 as a Whirlwind Barbarian. So let's just get right into it, starting with the abilities. So first off, we got Rallying Cry. This is going to be your resource generator. It's really a bread and butter that you're going to need for this guide. It also makes you unstoppable and gives you a movement speed increase. It's an amazing skill all around. War Cry, this is what you can think of as your power increasing ability, just going to give you more damage, and it really gives you berserking, which this build revolves around. We're really maximizing the berserker uptime here. Challenging Shout is your defensive ability that diminishes mobs' damage, so you're going to get 56% damage reduction if you have 9 ranks like me. It is possible to get even more than 9 ranks if you have defensive skills in your amulet. And Wrath of the Berserker allows you to be unstoppable and makes you berserking. This is just another ability to break CC and do more damage. Then we have Lunging Strike as our generator. This is also going to trigger berserking. That allows us to extend our berserking uptime, and there's some synergies we use in our gear to keep that up. Whirlwind, this is our really chief damage source. This is what you're going to need to plow through enemies and do damage. So let's get into the gear. So first of all, helmet, it's one of my best pieces. You're looking for either strength or berserking, or damage while berserking. Cooldown, total armor, and maximum life. Like I said, very good piece here. I got good rolls on this one. And you want to have this imprinted with the armor stacking ability for that much more mitigation. It's a really important one. We also have the chest here. You're looking for Challenging Shout and a combination of different damage mitigating affixes. I have close total armor and damage reduction here. Other ones that are good is like damage reduction while fortified, damage reduction while bleeding. Those two are pretty good too. I have this imprinted with an aspect that gives me a chance to get fortified whenever I deal direct damage while berserking. You're going to be berserking a lot with this build, stacking it the way I have, so that's really beneficial. Another one that works well here is the aspect that gives you damage reduction per bleeding enemy. Both of those are good. For gloves here, we have Strength, Lucky Hit Chance, Ranks of Whirlwind, and Critical Strike Chance. My strength isn't rolled all the way up, but this is pretty much what you're looking for here. It's imprinted with the ability that gives you a 40% chance at max to extend duration of berserking. Again, another thing that's going to keep that damage and movement speed flowing and keep our berserking as high as it possibly can, because that really maximizes our damage. With the legs here, this is another piece where you just want straight defense. So I have damage reduction from bleeding, maximum life, and total armor. This is another very good piece here. Other good affixes you can get is damage reduction while fortified and damage reduction while close. All those are pretty good. This is imprinted with an ability that gives me fortify per fury point spent at maximum. We got the boots Ghostwalker. This is going to make us move quick, basically whenever we're unstoppable, and you get to be unstoppable a lot in this build. I have Fury Cost Reduction, the movement speed boost after I kill an elite. That's not rolled perfectly, but if you can get it up to 42, that's perfect. Max Berserking Duration, really good slot here. And movement speed almost max. So this is a really good boots. It's not absolutely perfect, but it's very good. For your weapons, so you're either going to want to go with a mace two-hand or an axe or sword two-hand for the most part. You can go polearm too, but this is how I like to do it right now. My slashing weapon is better, so this is a pure stat stick. So I got vulnerable damage, core skill damage, strength, and critical strike damage. Close damage is a little bit better than core because it's in the same bucket and rolls slightly higher, but nonetheless, this is a pretty good rolled stat stick. We have it imprinted with the skill that grants my core skills additional damage per fury beyond the maximum spent. Both of your one-handed weapons are also stat sticks. I have both swords because they give you guaranteed critical strike damage. On both of these, I have strength, critical strike damage, core, and vulnerable. Again, close would be a little bit more preferable over core, but they're almost equivalent. On one of these, I have the one that's the Berserker Ripping. It just gives you more damage. And one is the Expectant. This is the one that you can kind of stack some basic skills and then unleash it into higher powered core skills. My weapon, I just got it today, kind of got lucky. It's an 823 I just bought off a vendor. It's not rolled perfectly, but it's rolled pretty good. We got strength, vulnerable damage, and core skill damage, and damage while berserking. If I had the option, I would love to replace damage while berserking with critical strike damage, but beggars can't be choosers, and this is a darn good weapon. I have it imprinted with the max dire whirlwind aspect that goes up to 48%. You're basically stacking crit almost to 100% in this build. Almost all of your slashes will crit. For Amulet here, mine has Fury cost reduction, damage with two-handed slashing weapons, cooldown, and damage. Ideally, the rolls that I would want here is probably Fury cost reduction, cooldown, heavy-handed, and ranks to defensive skills. But this one's still pretty good. I have some opportunity to improve. I have Edge Masters here. Max roll 30% just gives you a lot more damage. And Echoing Fury, this one is going to make your shout skills give you 4 fury per second. This is really the engine behind this whole build, both of your rings. This one it gives you so much more fury, so you're able to whirlwind constantly. Best rolls here to really get are critical strike chance, vulnerable damage, critical strike damage, and then a fourth. The fourth one can be anything from lucky hit, maximum life, and resource generation. All three of those are good. My other ring is just the same. This one has the Bold Chieftains aspect, another kind of fury generation engine here. This is the catalyst behind it all. So let's go right into the gems. You can see my armor is going to have blue that gives me more fortification. It's just super strong, and you're basically always fortified in this build unless you're taking too much damage. But my uptime on fortify is so high that these gems start to be better than the red gems which just give you maximum health. With the greens here, we have the greens in the weapons, just gives you more damage overall. And let's go to the expertise. So expertise, right now I have two-handed sword expertise because I am using a two-handed axe as my whirlwind weapon. See, I have it assigned to whirlwind here. What this means is that I'm going to be able to put a bleed on enemies because of this, and that helps synergize with some of the other abilities in my guide and in my build. If I had a sword here, which I recently did, then I would switch this expertise to the two-handed axe expertise. That is the other great one to have. If you have mace and are doing this build, you probably want to do sword, but again, I'm using slash, so we are going with the sword. Alright, let's go to the skill tree. So skill tree here, I have Lunging Strike up to the Combat Lunging Strike, just gives you Berserking. Whirlwind, we have it up to Furious Whirlwind, just gives you additional bleed damage, which actually is a considerable source of damage in this build over time. The bleed adds quite a bit. We have Rallying Cry pumped up all the way and then going to Tactical Rallying Cry to give you more resources. Challenging Shout, we have that going down to Tactical Challenging Shout, giving you more fury and a little bit more bonus life there for survivability. We have only 1 point in War Cry, and that goes to the Power War Cry. This is your, bread and butter damage. You're going to get a lot of damage and berserking from it. We also go with Booming Voice 3, just helps the duration of all your shouts. It's vital. You have to take it, basically. And Raid Leader 3 gives you a little bit of extra healing, and if you're in a group, it helps your group, too, whenever you shout. We got Swiftness 3 just for additional run speed. Movement speed so valuable in this game for farming. We have 3 Pit Fighter, 1 Hamstring, which applies slow to bleeds, but only to healthy enemies. They made a little bit of change there, but this synergizes with your build. It allows you to do more damage to the slowed enemies and CC'd enemies. Thick Skin, just basically taking this for Fortify, but it's really just to get to counter-offensive. We have 3 points in this, just giving you additional damage when you have Fortify, which we really almost always will in this build. And then we have down here in the ultimate skills area, we have Heavy Handed 3, just does much more damage with 2-handers. And then we have Wrath of the Berserker all the way down to Supreme Wrath. Mostly to break CC, give you extra damage and move speed and berserking. Then this one's totally vital. You have to take this one, Unbridled Rage. Just allows you to unleash the potential within this build and its damage. No other option really suffices. It's going to suck out more of your resource, your fury, but it does a lot more damage. Alright, let's go to the Paragon board here. I'm just going to give a summary here. Just a reminder, in the link below in the description, I do have a planner where I do list the specifics of my gear, Paragon, etc. So click the link if you want to see specific nodes. But I'm just going to review the glyphs. So in the first one here, I have Blood Feeder. This just does more damage to bleeding enemies, and then we get additional critical strike chance against bleeding enemies, which will be all enemies because we make them all bleed. Next board, we have Martial. This is going to reduce the cooldown of our shouts. Very important in this build. You want to try to have maximum 100% shout uptime if you can. It's hard to maintain that now, but that's what we want. Next board, we're going over here, Exploit. Exploit's found in almost every build in this game at this point. It just makes enemies vulnerable, and we deal more damage to vulnerable enemies. Then we're going up to Disembowel. Disembowel is kind of a unique one because what this does is gives you a 10% chance to reduce the cooldowns of your non-ultimate active cooldowns, which are all your shouts, when you kill enemies. It can kind of be hit or miss sometimes. It's basically based on dice rolls a lot of the time, but it does help you quite a bit get those shouts up to as close as you can to max uptime. Next one here is the Wrath Glyph. Wrath Glyph just gives you extra critical strike damage and additional fury. This one's very good. You have to use it in this build. It's one of the best. And then last but not least, we have Undaunted. It gives you damage while fortified, which again, you'll be a lot of the time. And you get damage reduction up to the amount of fortify you have. So damage and survivability, can't complain about that. Alright, let's get into the Malignant Hearts because this is the seasonal mechanic. This season brings you Malignant Hearts that you can socket into your jewelry, so your amulet and both rings can have it. I did quite a bit of testing with the Barbarian and just a lot of research. And first of all, let's talk about the Wrathful Heart that you want. The Wrathful Heart that you want is undoubtedly the Barber. The Barber's a heart that basically allows enemies to absorb all the damage for a particular time frame. For mine, it's 3.7 seconds. And then it basically explodes. Each of those enemies explode and does increased damage when the explosion occurs. This is an incredible, powerful ability that really kind of makes this build, super powerful, a very powerful farming spec, a very efficient farming spec. It's basically as useful as the pre-nerfed Gores was, if not better. It's a really powerful spec, and the cool thing about Whirlwind is you're constantly moving. A lot of classes have to stop and do damage. You're just basically unloading into each enemy while they absorb, and then they explode. And they'll show you a little bit of gameplay of how that looks later. For a orange gem, we want to get a Vicious Heart. And the Vicious Heart gives you additional critical strike damage, but your non-critical strikes deal 40% less damage. This is so good in this build because really you're not even doing damage unless your attacks crit, and we stack their crit chance so high with Dire Whirlwind. We have, a lot on our gloves. We stack it on the rings. We have a lot of critical strike chance. It goes so high. So we're basically always critical striking or close enough to it that the downside of this just totally, just overpowers the upside of this overpowers the downside. It's very valuable. And then we want a blue piece of jewelry too. This one we're doing a Brutal Heart. It gives you essentially an ability to kind of suppress a lot of the damage. And then when you use a defensive skill, that damage kind of explodes, and it does some damage. Damage from this is kind of negligible, but the fact that it's suppressed is, very cool. It's fire damage too, so between all of your jewelry, you want one slot of any color, one slot that's orange, and one slot that's blue. Most people, I think, will be putting their Wrathful Heart in the amulet because it's hardest to roll, but any combination of that will suffice. Alright, let's get into the gameplay because I want to show this build off. Alright, we're here in Hoarfrost Demise. You see I just did all my shouts. You can see they're absorbing the damage. I'm just spinning through everything. My shouts come up midway through. But basically, this is the build. You can use Lunging Strike to get the Berserking started and to travel. It's kind of multifunctional. And then just basically keep using your shouts. Wrath of Berserker breaks CC a lot. That's going to be helpful, plus gives you some survivability. If you want to build up your expectant aspect, you can do a few Lunging Strikes before you start to channel your Whirlwind. Remember, a lot of things get channeled and baked into your Whirlwind. It snapshots a lot, so keep that in mind. Right here, we're just killing an elite. If you have a Barber that's 3 seconds or more, it's going to take a little bit more to do the farming, but this is the type of Barber that you would want if you want to do more damage. Mine's like, I think, 3.6 seconds. If you can find a Barber close to 2, that allows you to farm better. But as you can see, I just basically allow everything to be absorbed, and then it eventually blows up all the enemies. I wanted to show you the boss here, so we got the Khazra Abomination. I'm doing a few basics, and now just spinning. This is a 53. See, I wiped out almost all of his damage right there. You gotta hit him a few more times, and that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this build. I hope you make use of it. It's a super fun build. And one last note, this gem, the Caged Heart of the Dark Dance, it seems like it would be good in this build, but after some testing it doesn't appear to work properly. I don't know if that's a design choice or a bug, but in this build you don't seem to get that increased damage. But if Blizzard makes this work, I would probably replace the blue survivability Brutal Heart gem with this one, because it seems like it'd be awesome. So there's the build. It can clear, upwards of 70, 80s. You can probably do 100, but it's not really made to do the highest. It's made to farm the best.